one of the first emails that I received here is a question about implementing a report system. Sue, do you want me to give you the microphone so you can talk and explain what you want to achieve? Now we should be able to hear you.
I don't need it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, so essentially what we need to do is currently we have a request form that our clients complete to request either ad hoc or cyclical reports. And currently, the way that it's set up is there's one part of the form that is visible to the user, and then there's another part of the form that is ours, essentially, where we record different things regarding that request.
Mm-hmm.
And it's currently not visible to the user.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if there's a way to kind of duplicate this with using the action form. Is there a way we can duplicate having the two parts? And they are essentially, when we view it in our web browser, it looks like two separate pages, even though it's part of the same form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. And in the backend, do you have a database table with this request?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this can be done very easily with action form. But each, how would the end user see their request? They can only have one request, or they can have any number of requests?
They can enter multiple requests, but they're all separate. They would be separate entries in the database as well. Mm-hmm. And they really don't have, well, yeah, they do have the ability, but when they go back in to see their form, they only see the one part of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I understand correctly, the first thing that you need would be like a grid where they can see their requests.
Yeah.
And then they also have a button to create a new request, but they only have like a limited set of fields, and also in the grid they can see a limited set of fields. But then you, as a different role, you can see more fields in the grid and more fields in the form on a separate page, but linked to the same table. Okay, so yes, you can do this very easily with action form and action grid, and I can go a few minutes just to show you how to start this thing, if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I will create a table. Let's say ID. Let me check some of your fields here. Requestor, and this would be probably a user ID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there would be like a, let's say, a unit, and this would be visible to the front end user, and for the administration, let's say deployment. Okay. So now I will start with an action grid module, and I will link it to this table. It's a bit slow, I think, because of the sharing, the screen sharing.
That's fine. I understand.
Okay, so now we set a data source. We can go directly to the table, to the database table, ID column. So now I just link the grid to the database, and then next step I can select which field this grid will expose. And let's say that I want to show the unit and the requester. Maybe the requester, I don't know, it's implicitly set to current user. So maybe I just saw this for, but also maybe I just filter where a requester, let me see how I requester equals user ID. So I filter only by request by current user. Okay, and what I have so far is an empty grid. Let me add some manual entries first, and after that we'll also make a form. Or yeah, or better yet, maybe I can show you the inline edit feature. I could okay. I think this would be a user ID. I don't have anything set up here, and this would be unit of sales. Let me see. I just want to have some entries so I'm able to test. And I think I also should have a identity column here. Okay. Anyway, so this would be like a grid where the person can see his own entries. And then we could create a form. I will create it on the same page, but you could create it on a different page where they can submit entries to this table. Let's start with a blank form. So this would be like a basic application that you can build with Action Grid and Action Form, and then just use different kind of filters and rules to wire everything together. So here what I'm doing is, let's say I want to add a text box for, or not a text box, maybe a drop down for a department or a unit. And then I can specify some items. And you can wire this, for example, you can wire this to a secret query that returns the units from a different table, which is probably a more common setup. Okay. And then for a requester, it would probably be the current user, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe then we can just add a hidden field, because we don't want him to edit this field basically. And just use a token like this to be the current user ID. And then we finally add the button. And in the button we add a SQL action, run SQL query. And here we can just write insert into reports, requester, alias, not requester and the unit. Okay, and here we can use the tokens, which are the field names. So this will basically get replaced with whatever comes from the form, these two. I'm not sure if I named this one correctly. Let me check. Yeah. Okay, so now what I have now is a form where I can submit an entry, and it should appear now in my list. Yes, so now I have 2 entries. So this would be on the front end where the end user requests reports, and then the other page, it will be the same thing, only that you display more columns and you add more fields into the grid and you update more fields into the table. Do you think this will work for your requirement?
Well, actually, my question was more around the 2 parts of the form. So there's the part that the user works with, then there's the part that we work with to make our notes about the request, to you know, track our work on the request. And that's the part that is tied directly to that user's request, but it's not visible to them. But it's part of the same form currently.
Yeah. So what you can do, you would create another page. Let me see if I can copy this page. And on the other page that is visible for administrator, we will have the same grid, maybe with the same columns, and then we have a form where we can load one of the entries from the grid, add a few more information, and then submit it again, which will update the existing entry.
Okay.
The setup will be similar, only that we have to load the data first into the form, and then instead of doing an insert into the database, we do an update into the database. This is so slow.
Ca să bați apa?
Yeah. Maybe I'll try to do it on the same page. Okay, so now the next step, so I'm doing it on the same page because I see it's very slow to clone the page. So now so now I'm the role of the administrator, and then I want on each row to have a button where I can edit an entry. Yeah, so I can, there's different way to do it. For example, I can use this edit item. Let me delete the other one. Okay, so this edit button, what will do, it will do whatever is defined into the data source in the edit URL. I can use the same report end. And then I can pass the ID in the query string, and again I would use some token to reference the ID of each row. Yeah. So now if I click edit on the first one, I should get the ID 0 in the query string. And if I click the edit on the second one, I will get ID 1 in the query string. Yeah. So next thing, I can go to the form and configure it to load data based on the query string. And this can be done very nicely in it. We execute a query, and we say something like select all from reports where ID equals, and then we reference the ID like this, query string double colon ID. Okay, and then this is not enough. This just loads the data, but then we need to load it into the field, and we extract here the columns. Let's say we want to extract unit and store it in the unit. So this will be the database column, and this will be the name of the fields where you want to store it. It can be one of the form fields, or it can be just temporary storage that you can use in other actions. So now what we have is yeah. So now when I don't have a query string, I would get this error. But I can show you in a bit how we get around that. So now if I click edit on the second one, I get ID equals 1 in the query string, and okay, and I don't see anything here. Give me 1 second. Sales QA. And I was going to show you also how to avoid this error. You can use the condition field, which is this is like a Boolean expression, like C# Boolean expression. So here I can say if query string equals is greater than 0, so that will, or equal maybe, that will only happen when it exists in the query string. Then it will execute this action, otherwise it will not execute it. So I can also build this kind of conditional logic. Okay, I'm not sure why the dropdown didn't work. I see I still have an error here. But this would be the principle like this. I don't know what I did wrong, but I can, let me get back. Let's try like this. That query string is not empty. No? Okay, I don't know what's the right syntax here. I have to look it up, and we can chat via email about the details like this. Okay. So there will be a condition here to prevent it to run it when it's not editing, if that's needed. Let me see what the other problem was with loading the data. Okay, so I think I have a problem here, but normally what would have happened here is this dropdown will contain sales because I loaded this ID and I use this query here to store data into the fields. I think I have a problem with these test machines. I will check it out later. And that would be the first step. And the second step would be on submit instead of having the insert statement like I had previously.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would have an update statement. So there will be like an update reports, set unit equals unit where ID equals query string ID, something like this. So now, as an administrator, you load an existing entry. You can see you can add more fields to the form. So those private fields that you don't want to give to the end user, like notes and those stuff. And then on update, you just update the rest of the information like this.
Okay.
Does this answer your question?
Nope, I think that explained it to me. This webinar is being recorded.
Yes, yes, correct.
Will that be available somewhere that I can revisit this?
Yes, yes, I will upload it later today, I think, or tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. You are welcome. Let's see if anybody else has more questions. No questions today? Yeah, usually when we have a webinar on a release, at the end of the webinar we have a Q&A session, but usually many times it gets derailed with side questions. And I think that was the purpose of this webinar, to get those questions, to give more time for that kind of questions. So I think maybe next time when that happens, I will note down many of the questions and schedule them in a webinar like this, so we have more time to talk about them. Let's see. I have a question from Phil. Phil, do you want to give your voice, or do you want to just write? I can unmute you. I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Bogdan. Quick question. Special characters, if we go the route of the manual updates and inserts and whatnot, do we have to worry about that, escaping those, or are those going to be handled automatically?
Yes, they are handled automatically.
Okay, so that syntax that you gave, strictly putting single ticks around text fields, is sufficient to handle any characters that they were put inside there?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So you see, when you use it like a string, you put single quotes outside, but anything that's inside the token, it will get escaped.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anything else? Yes. Regarding this, I can tell you more about what Phil just asked me regarding these tokens. So whenever we apply tokens, we also specify a context where the token is being replaced. Because if it's inside SQL, we need to escape some characters. But if we're inside HTML, we need to escape other characters. I think we have also for XML, we have also for JavaScript, and a bit more. Yeah, we have 5 or 6 different types of contexts, and based on that, various characters are escaped in different ways. For example, in HTML, we would escape tags, ampersands. These are special characters that would break formatting. Phil, I think you're still, you can, if you unmute yourself, I think you can still speak if you want.
Oh, yeah. So, Bogdan, is there a single location where there's a list of all the tokens available? Because I kind of found a couple places where different ones are explained, but it'd be nice if there was some central list, or at least a guideline of, user colon versus query string colon versus all that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because syntactically it's sometimes hard to figure out what's what.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you are talking about my tokens, in my tokens you can see all the tokens. So that's the easy part. But if we are talking about action form, action grid, yeah, you basically need to figure out. I know it's not ideal, and we have it on our list to implement like some kind of autocomplete.
No, I'm just talking about a documentation for an explanation of everything in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you go into my tokens and you're interested in the core tokens that come with my tokens, you have a list here. And then when you click, let's say, on membership, you get maybe not a very thorough description, but at least you know what's available into each of these tokens. And there's also this page that has a bit more information about each token. So this page goes over all tokens and gives some information, some examples, how to use it, when to use it.
Okay, and that's just the MyToken ones, though. The other ones,
Yes, this,
you still need to figure out.
yeah, these are just my tokens, and then in the rest of our modules that are based, like you have the local tokens, like you have the form fields or you have the grid fields. In those kind of modules, it's just the name between brackets. And sometimes, yes, sometimes the description would say, like it says here, okay, this is the value of this field, but then you can also access the text, or you can explicitly access the value like this with double column value and double column text. And each field would enumerate all these tokens. Like let's look at the file. The file is a bit more complex. Single file upload. Here you have a bunch of tokens like URLs, relative file path, and then you have the stream, and then you also have the base 64. And then I think, I'm not sure, maybe I have another version. There are also like for file size. You have the file size in various units, like in bytes, kilobytes, megabytes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Our idea is that we'll implement like a autocomplete service. So whenever you start typing like a bracket, or maybe when you click a button, you get an autocomplete with all the tokens that are available, including my tokens and local tokens. I think that will make it a lot easier to work like this. Okay, do we have more questions for today? Okay, if not, then maybe we just stop here. And I think we'll do this kind of webinars more often, but from the experience today, I think it will be only worth doing if we get a few topics in advance so we can prepare them and maybe even announce what the topics are, because otherwise maybe everybody will not get the most of this webinar. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. I will upload this webinar a bit later, and see you on our next webinar. I think it will be on the Action Grid release. We're preparing, it's a major release. We've added all the stuff in, like inline editing, we've added inline details, we've added a lot of big features into it. It will be a huge release, and I think it will be maybe in 1 or 2 weeks we'll have this out. So thank you again, and I wish you a great rest of the day.